So this recording is a model making activity, and I'm going to be asking you to do some measuring and laying out your drawing quite carefully. You've got a couple of options as to what we work on. This is a model making activity that does require card. The best option for that, I've been chewing my way through a Weetabix box today, so a cereal packet which is known as brown card, box card, sorry. And box cards are really good model making material because it is very narrow, it's very flexible, but it has a really good stiffness. So if you get your folds and your tabs and your joining bits in the right position, it holds really well. It does mean that you do need to get yourself some cereal package. If you try and do this with paper today, you're going to find that your final product doesn't work effectively. We're going to do some layout with a ruler and a sharp pencil, and your adhesive is going to be potentially Pritt stick, although I'm not a fan of Pritt stick for model making. You're probably going to need some either masking tape or sellotape, and another alternative might be, if providing you're prepared to let the glue set, if you want something slightly more permanent, is to use an all-purpose adhesive or even white wood glue. There's loads of different adhesives out there that you can use. I'm using some pretty big scissors, but I've done this a couple of times with some normal school scissors without any problem at all. You do need to sharpen your pencil, you do need a long ruler for this. Okay, now I'm going to do the actual drawing activity onto a piece of paper because I think it makes it easier for you to see. But I wouldn't suggest that you do it on paper and then do it on card. I would go straight onto the card. The Weetabix packet, I think, might be a little bit smaller than some other sorts of packaging, but it certainly isn't bigger than other cereal packets. So providing you've got a box, it should be able to handle this. It basically fits on an A4 page. If you look at my Weetabix packet on the A4 page, it's actually a little bit smaller than that page. So you want to have something, the biggest panel from a cereal packet will do it. I'm going to draw this on my A4 page to make it easy for you to see, and I'd like you guys to follow along as I do it. Please, you can pause the video if you need to have a bit of a double check, but do make sure that your measurements are right in the first instance. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is to draw a straight line along the bottom of the page parallel with the edge. Okay, and that's going to be where I'm measuring from. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure 3 key measurements from very near the bottom left. Okay, so I'm going to measure a mark which is 0, then I'm measuring 80, then I'm measuring 60, and then I'm measuring 80. Okay, so they're my 3 most important measurements. Now we're going to draw a line straight up the page now, which is going to form that part there. Okay, and what I'm going to do is to line up my ruler, really check this 90 degrees, and what I quite often do, I just look at the little line that's printed on the ruler, and that gives you a bit of an idea about whether you are running at 90 degrees because they've printed it at 90. So I'm going straight up the page. Now that I've got that line in position, I can draw my next line by measuring across from it, and that was 60. Okay, and now I can plot straight up. Okay, so that gives me my vertical lines here. Next thing to do is to mark out my divisions on there, and so I'm going to measure up. From here I'm measuring up 8 centimetres, 3 centimetres, and I think this final one comes in at 6 centimetres. And that's so that it fits on a panel of the cereal packet. Alright, so I'm going to do the same thing on this line here. Now if you had a set square and you were able to do it with a set square, that'd be much better. You've probably got one in your maths kit, in your maths set, and the benefit of that is that you can measure 90 degrees having only drawn one measurement. We're having to plot twice because we don't have a set square. I'm trying to keep the equipment to a basic here so that you're able to do it regardless of what you've got at home. Okay, so I've now got a back panel, a top and a front. Back panel, top and front. I'm now going to draw these two sides in. We do need to go for symmetry here, so I want you to be careful as you do it. We're going to measure up from each of our two end marks 3 centimeters. Come on. And there's the second one. And I want you to just do a little bit of quality control on this, double check it, because problems that you create here are going to make bigger problems later on. So we're making sure that they're the right length. They were 3 centimeters. And now I'm going to just plot between those two, just to make sure that they line up when we fold this up. Okay. So now onto there, I'm going to measure 2 centimeters across and 2 centimeters across. Okay, so I've come up 3 and now I'm coming across 2, up 3, across 2. You know, pause this video if you find that I'm going a bit quick for you. Pause the video and double check your measurements, because it does make a difference. Right, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to come straight down 1 centimeter from there. So if I line up my 3 at the bottom, let's see if you can see it. If I line up my 3, I know that I'm at 90 degrees. Trying to keep 90 degrees for most of these is important. Okay, so down 1 centimeter here as well. All right, and again, we can draw a little line across here between those two to get our symmetry. Mark there and a mark there. Okay, and now we're going to come out the side. So again, if you just look at where we're going with this, we've come up, we've come across, we've come down, we've just done our 15 mil. We're now going to plot up and down to create that shape there. Now, the way I'm going to do this, looking at this line, I'm going to set my ruler up so that the 3 is on the left hand side. Hopefully the 9 is on this line. And I can now do a line at 0 to 3 and then from 9 to 12, which means that I'm coming out 3 centimeters or 30 mil on either side. That's those two. And then I plot down to here. Okay, so there's the two sides to it. All right. Now, again, if we look at my drawing here, what I've got to do is to add glue flaps to it to allow this object to join together. Now, model making is an engineering process, an architecture process, an interior design process. It's really important because you're able to demonstrate to a client, to a customer, what your product or what your vision is for a product, and they're able to then handle it and go, actually, do you know what? I think you need to make an adaptation there, or this is where our branding could go, or this is how we could reinforce it, or use an alternative material. So what I'm going to do here is a very basic version of packaging or graphics or promotion, and our job later on will be to draw this and to see if we can make some improvements on it. So there is a purpose behind this, and this is genuinely used in industry by professionals who earn decent money doing this sort of activity. So I'm not just doing random drawing with you here. Anyway, look, we're on to glue flaps. Now, the way I would do glue flaps, to keep it simple with a ruler, I line up the bottom edge of the line of my numbers with the line, the edge, and then just use that as a method of drawing, spacing out my glue flaps basically. So I'm not spending time measuring them. If you make them too small, your glue flaps are really, really hard to bend and really hard to get them in position. If you make them too big, they maybe get in the way of your drawing. Now I tend to freehand these bits. Once I've drawn my line parallel, I tend to just draw that inaccurately. Now, if you were doing a proper presentation to a client or your final GCSE piece, or you're presenting it to someone to see if it worked well, you need to do it more accurately. And equally, if you were doing it on CAD, computer-aided design, you would do it really precisely. Because for me, on this product, the glue flaps are hidden, that's why I'm happy to go with a freehand version as opposed to making you watch me do all these carefully lined up versions, okay? So a reminder, I'm doing this on paper so that you can see what I'm doing. When you come to doing your own, you're going straight onto your card. Right, so I've now got a glue flap that's going to join here. I've got a glue flap that's going to join there. What I need is some sort of glue flap that's going to go, or some sort of panel that's going to go from here to here to form this part of our product and this part of our product. Okay, so what I'm going to do is use this front piece here. I'm only going to do it on the right hand side, and I'm going to plot, again without measuring, I'm just lining up against that line. I'm plotting straight up. Okay, and then onto that I'm going to measure 60. Now this is really an exercise, as much as anything else, this is an exercise in resilience and determination. Some of you by now will be going, oh, it's too many measurements, it's too difficult. It isn't too difficult, and although there's a lot of measurements, that's practicing the measurements, and this makes you cleverer. Doing this sort of activity where you're using your hands and you're using your brains and you're thinking about numbers and you're listening to me talk it, your brain's working really hard doing this, and spatially it makes you cleverer. Also, it's fine motor skills. By doing practical activities, your hands are better able to do other things later on. It's training. It's very simple. Anyway, let's carry on. I'm going to plot forwards and plot forward. Okay. This is our final panel. It's a front panel, and I'm going to come in at 20 mil. Now, in reality, I would like that to be 30 mil. That one, because it forms this piece here. But I know that on my piece of Weetabix card, it doesn't fit at 30, so I'm doing that at 20. If you've got a bigger piece of card than me and it fits on your card, go bigger. You want it to be 30 ideally. And remember, you are drawing on card, not paper, hopefully, because this doesn't work on paper very well. Okay. So I've now got a back panel, I've got a top, and I've got a front face. Then I've got a top panel here that's going to join up over there, and I've got a front edge. So I've nearly got all of my bits. I just need to put these glue flaps on here. And one down at the bottom. Now, as a model maker, what you need to be doing as you do this is thinking, am I making this as strong as possible? And when you start assembling it and putting it together, you got to start thinking, is there a better order for me to be doing these folds and these bends? Would a tab have been better in a different position? Because you could put things over here instead of over here, or you could put things here instead of well, there would turn out to be there. So you can think about your arrangement of your parts as you draw it, and hopefully each time you would get better or quicker. I've certainly done this about 3 or 4 times this morning, so I'm getting quick at it. That's my measurements done. All right, I'm going to just darken in this line here so I don't end up forgetting about it. Boom. Right, now realistically, these should be dashed lines because they're fold lines. I'm drawing it quite quickly, so I'm not doing it dashed, but if you were doing this again for somebody else and they saw those as solid lines, there's a very good chance they'd end up cutting this into hundreds of pieces. If you were doing CAD work for a laser, you would probably, or for any output, you would probably have different coloured lines for creases, different coloured lines for engraving of detail, and different coloured lines for cutting. So that's another thing that you might think about, is different colours later on. So for now, that's the product drawn. Hopefully you've drawn it onto a piece of card like I have there. All right, because the next stage is going to be to cut that out. All right, good luck with that. Well done if you've stuck with it. If you haven't stuck with it, you need to have another go at it, because I'm going to be looking to have that submitted to me, please. So we've finished our drawing. So the next stage now is going to be to cut it out. And remember, just double check that things are in the right position. Make sure you've got your glue flaps, and don't end up cutting them off, because they're important for the construction in a minute. All right, so I'll spend a bit of time now just cutting those up. I'll speed this bit of the video up. Take your time, get it right, be precise. Okay, so I've cut it out now, and what I'm about to do is to fold it up. Now, what you need to think about is, if you're using a cereal packet like I am, we're actually going to want it to fold inwards to cover that, so that sits on the inside. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just make a little snip, tiny little snip on the bottom of here, to indicate to me where that changes, where that fold line needs to be. And then I'm going to use my ruler to help me bend things accurately, so I get a nice straight line. If I bend them just by hand, what will happen is that I'll end up with sort of rounded corners, and I want to achieve quite sharp bends. If you were doing this on a piece of metal, you'd have to allow a particular amount of bend radius to allow it to curve properly. You'd use a sheet metal brake for it, or you'd use some folding bars. Because this is box card, it's actually relatively easy to bend, and it's nice and stiff. It'll hold its shape, providing you're accurate. So I know I've got a change of angle there and there. I've now done a little snip at the bottom of here and here, so I can get my first key bends done by lining up here and here. Okay, and then just work your way up your shape, holding your ruler down. Work your way up your shape, putting that bend on. And you might need to do it over 2 or 3 little stages to kind of get the bend to work without forcing it in one go. So there's my little snip at the bottom. There's my change of angle there. Just be careful to support your work so you get a nice straight bend. Okay, that's a pretty decent fold. So I might just work it a little bit just to make it easier when I come to assembling it. If it's very stiff, you'll find that the glue really doesn't work very well. So now you've got your bend in position, you can work it a little bit more. Okay, so now I've got to do this top bit, these bits here. So again, I know where they are because that's where my glue tabs finish. But you might want to bend it a little bit and just check it's going in the right spot, which it is. Okay. So we'll just check that that's working out all right. Looks pretty good. And then what you don't want to do is to bend these bits incorrectly. So just think about how you support the work as you bend it. Okay, and then I've just got these 2 glue flaps to do, and then I should hopefully be able to assemble it. So I'm looking at where my change of angle is again. Pushing down on my ruler as I create that bend. Okay, so I am missing a couple of panels off this. I know that because bend that one, because it didn't fit on the Weetabix packaging. So I might reinforce this afterwards. Reinforcing that afterwards if I'm missing pieces. But that's design development for you. That's what they call iterative. That's one step after another and making regular improvements. There we go. Right. So there's my shape, ready to assemble. And what we're creating is this kind of object. So Pritt stick will work okay. I'm actually going to use some masking tape here. I'll show you what I'm doing. I get some little tiny tabs of it and get it ready so that when you need it, you haven't got to get your whole roll of tape, that you're actually ready to do it. You can do the same thing with sellotape. Probably off the edge of a desk is better than on a pencil with sellotape. Pritt stick itself is absolutely rubbish for this job, but I'm going to use it because that might be what you've got at home. Your best bet is to use masking tape and white wood glue, or a little bit of this all-purpose glue, because it'll hold it more strongly. This Pritt stick is really only any good for flat sheets of paper, but I'm using what you guys have got, so I'm going to start with these bits here. And that'll give us the beginning of our shape. Okay, so roughly get it into position. I mean, the good thing about Pritt stick, if there is a good thing, is that it's repositionable. But certainly when you're doing design and technology, you would choose the appropriate adhesive. And Pritt stick, you wouldn't want to be buying a wardrobe that's built with Pritt stick, would you? And likewise, this model is not ideal with Pritt stick, but it's better than nothing. So now I get a piece of my tape. Just take that into position for a minute. So what you all have to do is work out where your tape needs to go based on what's coming apart for you. And that'll probably depend on what card you've used and how accurately you've bent it. I'll do a little bit of reinforcing of this afterwards in a minute. Okay, so that's that basic shape there. And now I can just concentrate on getting the front joined up. So we'll put plenty of glue on that. And that one. Now this one I'm just going to do inside. To hold it roughly together. And make sure there's glue. So you know you can rework this as you go. You could potentially think about how you trap one bit inside another, or even slide one part through another part. Okay, so there's our product. Now what I'm going to do with that is I'm actually going to start working inside it now and put some tape inside it. And the way I've done this on the previous one, sometimes some little bits of tape, particularly sellotape, is actually better for this. If you get it on your finger, you can poke it in position over the tab, put it down, and then use your other finger to trap it and get it off one finger. And a couple of those little bits reinforcing inside will make this much stronger. Okay, take your time, rework it, get it accurate, because really I want you to keep hold of this. We'll probably work on this design for other tasks as well, so it would be good if you can make sure you keep this. We'll look at how we make it maybe part of another bigger card system. I think this sort of design is really important anyway, because if you think about how the world's moving and the ability to design using sustainable materials, well, it doesn't get much more sustainable than card packaging, box card, whiteboard, because I'm going to use my pencil there, because it can go into a compost heap, it can be easily recycled, it's biodegradable. So learning how to make stuff that's fully functional using these materials is a really useful skill. So anyway, look, there's the finished product. Now, I've tested this previously. Now, it works really well as a mobile phone holder that way. Okay, so it works well like that. It does not work so well like that, and I knew that before I went into this. I know it's too narrow, and one solution is to put a strip there that would reinforce it. So that's the design development there. I really like this. That's a good angle, works well. I think that has some capacity there for some storage or some organisation on the back of it. I think I quite like it. There's something about that way up that I really like as well. Having built another one, I quite like these two together, and it makes me think about other designs. Look at that, that's potentially a table, maybe it's a side lamp, maybe it's a some sort of sofa system. So once you start model making, you have objects and you can begin to design by thinking about them together. You can think about them separately. Look at that little table and chairs arrangement there. That's quite cute. So lots to think about. Model making, really important skill, really important design skill, particularly when it comes to developing designs. There's nothing wrong with playing around with it a little bit, but sometimes you have to make sure you are being precise enough for the job, because if it doesn't match up, if it doesn't do what you need it to do, then you're not proving anything by model making. Just looking at that, that looks like a nice little storage system there. Anyway, right, well done if you've got that. We're going to move on to a drawing activity to go with this as well. Good work.